Welcome to another episode of Risk versus Reward. As always, we have with us Hari Vishwanath, the chief of our portfolio team. Thank you, Hari.
Sure, brother.
Lovely
Thank
being
you.
with you again. This week's conversation promises to be very interesting because we're not just going to look at investor impact, but also try and understand certain pieces of terminology that are thrown at us from the AI world, the world of artificial intelligence, from tokens to agentic AI to context windows and so on. What do all of these mean economically to the investor community? Get down to brass tacks right away.
Yeah.
Like we discussed in the intro, a lot of terminology comes to us from the AI world.
Yeah.
To help us understand this better, we'll probably go through the most important ones. To begin with, what exactly are tokens?
Yeah. So before that, I'll give a context of how this article came about. I think AI is now permeating everything, right? I mean, recently I had to travel abroad and my entire trip was planned by AI.
Wow.
In this one experience alone, I learned the role it is going to play in our lives going forward. I think it's coming to a stage where years down the line, we just can't be without AI, okay? After this trip was planned, an international trip, going to a country where I know nothing about the country, the language, I just used a AI tool to take care of it. I'm convinced that we are only going to, the use case of it is going to go up exponentially, okay? So we were discussing in my team, we realized that the jargons of AI can no more be confined to tech blogs, okay? We are all going to use it personally in our enterprise. We are going to make financial decisions based on AI. Like, let's say right now I'm using a Gemini Pro, which is for a year, it is free for me tied to my mobile plan, okay? When it expires, I think I will subscribe because I can't be without the plan after this experience for the trip I had with AI. So it is almost like early on when internet came about, we didn't have internet. We used to go to an internet cafe if we wanted to check mails once a week or something like that. Then we signed up for dial-up connection, which was cheaper. And I think by mid 2000, sometime between 2005 and 10, everyone started having a leased line. Most people, okay, most middle class homes started having a leased line along with their landline connection. So I think we are progressing on the same path with artificial intelligence, but the speed is faster. The adoption is significantly faster. So it's time to get used to the basic building blocks of artificial intelligence, because our decisions will be based on, our financial decisions on using AI will be based on that, okay? So when it comes to this, token is the most basic building block of artificial intelligence, because like you are built for your mobile connection or lease line based on GB of data you use, a token is the most basic unit that a AI model deals with. A token is the simplest of block. It is the smallest unit. And we are built based on utilization of tokens, actually. As a rule of thumb, a single English word is roughly 1.5 tokens. So depending on the number of words, your token usage will be calculated. And then there is input token, okay, where let's say you give a prompt to a AI system saying, let's say, tell me what is the most expensive stock listed in the Indian bourses today. So according to the number of words, there is a token consumption. Then there is an output, actually. The AI might give the output in certain number of words. It will definitely be larger than the number of words in the question, okay? So you will be billed for the input token. You will be billed for the output token based on the number of tokens utilized. The input token cost is lower than the output token cost, because input token cost, there isn't much compute. You are feeding in the data. Output token cost, the system has to process and then give you an output. It has to compute and then give you the output. So the charges are more. So for example, if you look at the chart we have for some of the models, we've laid out the input and output token costs. So for example, here the table is in dollar per million tokens, okay? And bear in mind, one word is roughly 1.5 tokens, okay? So here we have given the table in the article where we have given a list of different AI models and how much they charge for their input and output tokens, okay? So here that in this table we have given data in terms of dollar per million of tokens, okay? So let us say, for example, ChatGPT's most advanced model, which is GPT 5.6 Soul, you are charged $5 per million tokens when you input a prompt, okay? And for the output, you're charged 6 times that at $30 per million tokens, okay? So here just bear this in mind. As I told you earlier, one word is roughly 1.5 tokens, okay? So it is roughly for 660,000 words of input prompts, I am charged $5. So we have to keep this in context. So different models, depending on how advanced they are, the input and output charges vary. So enterprises will have to keep this in mind depending on how much tokens, how much they're willing to spend on tokens. Because ultimately what is happening now is most companies are trying to find the optimal balance between employee count and usage of AI. They want to optimize, okay? So recently what happened was Meta regretted its downsizing, and they felt they didn't do it well. So, and in the case of Ford, something even more interesting happened. They had actually done some downsizing, thinking they're going to use AI to fix some of the things they wanted to do. It didn't work, and they started rehiring. Okay, so there are costs and there are also execution issues involved with uh, trying to think most human work can be done with AI. But there is always a scope for gelling the two, optimizing the output of every employee with a combination of employees' efforts and utilization of AI. So, so there is an employee cost, there is a AI cost. This AI cost is built on the number of tokens you consume. So the world is evolving in a way where I think going forward, sometime in the future, it would be like every employee is given so much tokens. All right, a year you're allowed to use so much tokens, and then so that because there is an employee cost, there is a token cost. So I think these two would form part of what you could say are human resource costs at an organization. So some of the funny things we came across in the process of this article was how for one Anthropic customer, enterprise customer, which didn't fix a limit on number of on the token utilization, a single employee ended up utilizing $500 million worth of token. So enterprises will have to keep this in mind. Individuals too, actually. I think there was time early on when you would get overbilled on your postpaid connection because you didn't keep track of the calls you were making, overbilled on your internet connection. So same thing is what is happening in early stages of artificial intelligence actually.
Thanks. That was lucid, Hari, because it helps people like us when you give us examples from the past and try and compare those. For example, landline-based internet
Yes.
connections or being overbilled based on data that you use. I'm going to take a lot of heart from the re-recruitment example that you gave. After all, I'm also an employee, and I'm hoping that AI doesn't sweep past us.
Yes.
Hopefully
not.
You talked about cost. I do have a question about cost, but before I come to that, there's another piece of terminology that I'd like you to dwell upon, because this has been niggling my mind. What is agentic AI and why are companies so excited about it?
So agentic AI is probably one of the most important pillars of artificial intelligence today. If you heard N. Chandrasekaran of TCS in his recent talk during the AGM, he had said how TCS will have as many AI agents as the number of employees they have today in 3 years. Okay, so it took TCS roughly 50 years to go from 0 employees to 6 lakh employees. They're now going. They plan to have the same number of agentic AIs in 3 years. So 0 to 6 lakh agentic AIs in just about 3 years. So the thing is, like I told you earlier, the fusion between human effort and software or artificial intelligence is exactly going to be the right judicious mix of humans and human effort and agentic AI. Okay, so a simple loose definition of agentic AI that is, it's not a perfect definition. A general definition of agentic AI is autonomous system that can function independently on its own and plan and execute tasks using LLMs. So basically, you can think of, to understand it better, we'll have to consider a few examples. I'll give you this example. This is what I thought of when I was trying to understand agentic AI. Between my graduation and post-graduation, there was a 2-year break during which I worked as the executive assistant to the chairman of a business group in South India. Okay, so when I joined as his executive assistant, initially I was trained on kind of research he wants, kind of analysis he wants relating to his company or economy or markets. After 3-4 months, you get trained, then you yourself understand the kind of input, kind of research he will want. Before a prompt from him, you will be ready with some analysis and research that will be useful for him. You can think of agentic AIs as that actually. Basically, the current artificial intelligence systems will evolve where they understand you, and there will be an autonomous application in the system that will know a lot about you and function independently. Sometimes you will have to give it an instruction like, okay, I want to travel to Singapore between this date, go ahead and do it, in which case it will check your calendar, it will see when you are free, it will identify what are your interests, and then it might go ahead and make the booking. Okay, so that is a few years away, but that is how a system will develop basically. So I was recently reading a research report from a Canadian brokerage firm called BCA Research, and they gave a nice example of how agentic AI is going to completely disrupt certain industries like social media and YouTube, etc. What it is saying is, for example, now we go to YouTube and we search for a video, or when we log into YouTube, it kind of suggests videos that we might be interested in, okay, based on our past search history and past views and all that. And what it says is, once you have an agentic AI that understands you well, you are not going to do any of it. Every day it will curate all the content. It will go to YouTube and it will tell you watch these videos. It will go to X and say these are the posts you need to check out today. So basically it is like I told you about me being an executive assistant to a chairman. Imagine we are all chairman, and the agentic AI is our executive assistant. Okay, it is going to learn about us, and it is going to reduce our workload, where save us time, where we don't go to websites, it gives us the content. So look at how this is going to disrupt the industries, which is what BCA research says. It says today you go to YouTube and YouTube monetizes it via advertisements and subscription. You go to X or you go to Facebook, and the more you visit, the more advertisements they get. Now, what is agentic AI going to do? It is going to completely save you from the task of going to these sites. It is just going to give you the content. To an extent, to how our media business is getting disrupted, where Google searches mean people don't come to our website. They search for a topic. Let us say they want to know where is TCS stock headed. Okay, they don't come to a website and check. They actually search TCS about its shares, and they read the links that which might give them some insights about the stock and what's happening in the IT industry. Less people visit websites now. It's more done on search, and maybe now more in it's AI search actually. So the same thing, there is going to be kind of a reverse. So the same thing, there is going to be a reverse impact on the same companies that disrupted the media industry, which is that social media and companies like Google. So they are going to get disrupted by AI agents basically. So they will now, over a long-term period, figure out newer business models to deal with lesser visits to their site, because the content is going to come to me on my mobile. I don't have to go to these sites to watch. So see, you might still have to view the content in their site, but you're not going to go and
Browse
search
through.
in their
Yeah,
site.
yeah,
Okay,
got it.
this is just one example. There it can kind of AI agents once artificial intelligence progresses even more, a lot of tasks are going to be done by agents. Like this time when I was telling you about my international trip, I had to prompt get answers, prompt get answers. Imagine where
Yeah.
I just give a few details to the AI agent about my interests and it takes care of everything, the planning, what I should do, etc. So there will be kind of disturbances in going in when in evolve in the evolutionary process, because every time it won't be perfect, but eventually we will get there. So to that extent, we all have to get ready for the changes that are going to be ahead of us. In this context is why we thought important to understand the building blocks of artificial intelligence. One is tokens, the other is agentic AI.
Understood. And we're all very painfully aware of the effort that goes behind building viewership and subscriptions.
Yeah.
While we're on the topic, what is scaling loss? Why is that important in the AI context?
Yes, Bharat. So scaling loss is one of the most important concepts in artificial intelligence, because lot of money is being thrown into development of AI models. Okay, billions and billions. I mean, in fact, we are nearing $1 trillion in terms of capex from the big tech companies, and most of it is to build hyperscalers and train AI models and give customers compute capacity to build their models. So there are two extreme views on artificial intelligence. Okay, on one end, on one extreme view, you have people like Geoffrey Hinton, recent Nobel laureate, saying that the artificial intelligence systems will develop rapidly. They will reach AGI, artificial general intelligence, which is where uh, its intelligence surpasses human level of intelligence, and it will be able to execute and operate entirely on its own. Okay, and then on the other hand, there are people like Yann LeCun, who was the former head of artificial intelligence at Meta Systems, and a few others like Gary Marcus. So here, these people are critical of the hyperbole at which the people at the other end are talking of what AI systems can do when in terms of AGI and all that. For example, Yann LeCun says that the AI system's intelligence is lesser than that of a normal cat, actually. Okay, so per se, some are of the view that this is weak intelligence. Actually, this is weak AI. Sorry, some are of the view like IBM has put out a research where they call it weak AI. So this is where scaling laws gain importance, because the people who are the companies that are pouring lots of money into AI are of the view that AGI is achievable. Okay, like Meta, Mark Zuckerberg has spoken of it some time back. So what if it is something like a holy grail you will never reach? You're throwing a lot of money. So the scaling law, this is the basic of the scaling law. An artificial intelligence requires parameters, which is weights. Okay, there are three pillars to an LLM system. One is the parameters, which is weights. Then the second thing is the training data, and the third thing is compute capacity. An optimal mix of parameters, training data, and compute will give you the best output. So here is where the scaling law gains importance. Let us say you're throwing money into computing capacity by building hyperscalers, but you don't have sufficient training data, or your weights are lacking, then the output is not going to be optimal. So you need to scale all three: parameters, training data, and compute, to keep progressing in this field. Okay, here is where one problem we have. What is happening is the training data is getting contaminated, because a lot of data which is now, most of the available data, okay, whether the AI system scrapped it from newspapers or books or information available online, has already been used by the AI systems. More data is coming in, but more and more data includes the utilization of AI. AI system is not perfect. So when you're using AI contaminated data, the quality of training data is getting a bit inferior compared to what it was pre 2022 or so. So here is where the problem we have when it comes to scaling laws. This is one obstacle that AI systems will have to deal with.
That was very insightful. So why should an investor know all of this? I understand there are some pieces of information that get mandated as disclosures over time in the last couple of decades, if you've seen. So do you see some of this terminology being critical for an investor to make a decision? Will it become mandated disclosures over time?
See, at this point it is not critical, but it is time to get aware of it. Let us say you're a long-term investor, you need to understand what is happening, okay? Like your company will suddenly have something known as token cost. I'm not sure if it will come as a line item in an accounting statement, okay? Like if you go to let's say a TCS let's say annual report, you will have employee costs, which will be the main cost. Then you have gross profit. Then you have sales and promotion, other expenses, miscellaneous expenses. Like these are the line items, okay? Going forward, you may have something known as AI cost, token costs, and that could be substantial. Okay, so only substantial items have separate line items, okay? So that is one thing. And then when you're, as an investor, you're going to make an investing decision, we all have to grapple with what is going to be the evolution of business from here, okay? Understanding this might help us make a more informed decision. Okay, let's say, for example, let's go back to 99, 2000. I was much younger there. So I learned about the dot-com boom later rather than when it was happening. So let us say if you understood what are bits and bytes and what are fiber optics and what is e-commerce, etc. And to what extent, which is a superior business? Is it better to invest in a fiber optic business that transfers data, or do you invest in an e-commerce business which utilizes the internet service and profits from it? Like ultimately, if you go back to 99, 2000, there are two ways in which you would have thought you can get wealthy, okay? One is buying telecom companies, which invest in setting up the fiber optic cables and provide the internet service. Then the other is invest in the e-commerce companies or internet companies like Amazon, Microsoft. Although it wasn't a core internet player, it had some internet offerings. Google, of course, got listed only after the dot-com bust. But let's say if Google IPO was in 2004. So if you wanted to decide where to invest, do you invest in Google or Amazon or AT&T, okay, which was a telecom service provider? Eventually, the winners of the internet boom were the internet and e-commerce companies, not the service companies. The service companies had to incur enormous capex to keep meeting the demand. So the capex and the consequent depreciation and the cash outflows because of the capex meant that they were cash guzzlers, while internet companies were cash generators, cash printing machines, okay? So understand this. Now we are getting into the next wave, artificial intelligence wave. Understanding this will help us make a decision on which should you invest in an AI inferencing company whenever it comes up, or should you invest in an LLM company like Anthropic or OpenAI when their IPO comes, or do you invest in hyperscalers? Okay, like Amazon, Microsoft are all have a major hyperscaler business. So understanding this will help us make a better decision.
Awesome. Before we sign off, I'm tempted to ask this question. I cannot leave you without this. Judgmental as it may seem, I'm stunned, not just surprised, but stunned at the fact that the CXOs of all these big companies are actually surprised by the costs of tokenization or the tokens that they use. I thought everybody had such a tight leash on costs and they're accountable to millions of investors. How did this slip past their attention?
It's a good question. I think one thing is some companies didn't have limits. They didn't expect so much of token utilization. See, for example, sometimes you have to set limits. Okay, like I told you about how we may have got billed for a landline bill
Yes.
2 decades back or 3 decades back. For a postpaid mobile connection, we would have used it without keeping a limit. So I think probably it was something like that. And then you realize now you need to cap utilization. Basically.
Thank you, Hari. This was an intellectually demanding conversation.
Thank you.
It was highly fulfilling, and I hope we can keep the tempo into the next conversation for risk versus reward.
Sure. We also learnt a lot while working on the copy. So I hope readers also liked it and learned from it. And I hope you viewers who've not read the article so far do go to our website www.thehindubusinessline.com/portfolio and check out the article.
Thank you.
Thank you.